Welcome, Midgardians, to That Midgard Show. I'm Clay.
And I'm Joe.
In today's Creature Showcase episode, we dive deep into Midgard's twisted and wondrous bestiaries to unearth some of the most fearsome and fascinating creatures that roam its realms. From the icy peaks of the Northlands to the sun-scorched deserts of the Southland, Midgard teems with a rich tapestry of both monstrous and magical creatures. Joe, what do you got for us today?
Well, since in a recent episode we talked about the Vargrike, I just kind of love the concept of it being this wolf country, right? So I had to go with a monster that fits that. So let's set this up. You have spent the last 2 days in a small village of humans and dwarves in the northern part of Jornreich, investigating some mysterious cases of missing people and destruction of food stores. You have an odd feeling about this place. Some people seem good enough, but others just seem off. One woman even swears her husband, who now has gone missing, was not her husband at all. He was some kind of imposter. Thus far, you've been unable to solve this strange mystery, and tonight you find yourself patrolling the town, hoping to find some answers. As you turn a corner, you see a building on fire, then another. You begin to rush towards them, and you notice villagers about. At first, you think they're rushing to put the fires out, but then you see they are the ones setting the fires. Then shouts begin to echo. Fire! Fire! Now more people are about, some running with pails of water, while others still carry torches lighting more fires. You recognize those starting the fires. You've seen them about town. They're farmers and shopkeepers. So what are they doing? You move to put a stop to this, and that's when you hear the howls. For a moment, there's silence. The shouts and screams of all the people stop, and they listen in silence and fear. More howls. Then a scream. Panic erupts. People begin to run, and you see the yellow eyes and shapes of wolves and wargs move through the streets. And then you see it. A huge, wolf-like creature stands on its hind legs and walks through the town. It gestures and points at the wolves and wargs, and they obey its unspoken commands, chasing down people and attacking. It jumps at a dwarf who attacks it with an axe, and in one move, you see its mouth open unnaturally wide and swallow the dwarf whole. And now it turns towards you, and you draw your weapon and make ready. Roll for initiative. What we have here is a creature known as a Nightgarm. These are red-furred wargs with these wide mouths and these half-formed fingers, and they can move about either on their hind legs or though they move faster on all fours. They're created in a ritual that's performed over a pregnant warg, and they are always born female. They're followers of Fenris, who we mentioned in our episode about Vargrike. Fenris is also known as the Great Wolf. So these are CR6 large monstrosities. They're strong, they're quick, they're scary as hell. They have these high strength, con, and charisma scores and well above average dex and wisdom, so they're very formidable. They have an average of about 152 HP, although they can go all the way up to 224 on the high end, and they're fast. Like I said earlier, they have a movement speed of about 40 feet. So they're also very stealthy, they're perceptive, they're resistant to lightning and thunder damage, but being kind of part of that werewolfy type family, they are vulnerable to not only silvered weapons, but radiant damage. Combat wise, they only really have two attacks. They have a claw attack, which is their kind of a basic attack, 2d6 plus 5 slashing. But then they have this bite attack. Now, the bite attack at base is damaging, 2d10 plus 5 piercing. But when they bite, this is really their power. When they bite a creature, it has to make a DC 15 strength saving throw, or else it's swallowed whole. And as I kind of mentioned in my description, it's like, even though their mouths are wide, it's like they open up unnaturally wide, almost like a snake unhinges its jaw, but quicker and weirder. It's very unnerving. Once it swallows the creature whole, like most creatures with some kind of swallow attack, the target will be restrained and blinded. And now, while inside of the creature, you would take 3d6 acid damage at the start of each of your turns. To get out, you have to do 20 damage to the Nightgarm. And then the Nightgarm would have to make a DC 14 con save. Otherwise, it'll spit you out. You'll land prone near it, that kind of thing. Or if somebody kills the Nightgarm, then you can crawl out. But more importantly, and this is the thing that ties it all together with my intro, is that if a creature swallowed by the Nightgarm dies, that creature then becomes what's known as a false heart, which is basically a reanimated corpse of the person, but now they're a monstrosity and a complete servant of the Nightgarm. The Nightgarm will then send them off to infiltrate a town or a settlement and basically wait until the time is right and then assist the Nightgarm and its allies in attacking. So that's kind of why in my intro, the villagers were doing these things. I mentioned how the one wife said her husband was an imposter. Well, that's because it's actually possible for somebody familiar with the false heart, they can make a DC 20 insight check to know that there's something not right, that they're not their normal selves or that they're not even themselves at all. So very interesting tactic and creepy, fun way you can really play with the Nightgarm. Now, the Nightgarm does have one other ability, which is it can magically summon some wolves, like 2d4 wolves or 2 dire wolves to fight alongside it for like an hour. That's a once a day ability, but they may be part of a larger pack of wargs or werewolves or something like that as well. So they can just be kind of part of that larger group. But the whole tactic of swallowing somebody whole, first off, seeing that is unnerving, but then if you don't know that's happened and there's these people around that are actually servants of the Nightgarm, man, that can make for some like real like creepy stuff. Like, oh god, I'm thinking of like movies like The Crow or not The Crow, what's Children of the Corn type moments, you know?
The Body Snatchers.
The Body Snatchers, yes, thank you.
That movie's been remade so many times.
Oh. Well, I don't know, man. I like I said, and when we did our episode on Vargrike, I was like, man, the Wolf Country is just so cool, and I had to find something that worked for that. And this guy just jumped out of the page. I was telling my wife about this creature, and she's like, "This is why I have trust issues with you as my GM." She's like, knowing these things really messes with me. I'm like, all right, that's fair, because this is the kind of stuff I would totally pull.
Yeah, all players distrust the DM. It's just the cross we bear.
It is.
Oh man, the indignity of being swallowed and in the stomach of acid and starting to be digested. There's that trope. I got a sword. I'm gonna cut my way out.
Yeah, I'm gonna cut my way out. Yeah, what's his name from Guardians of the Galaxy? He's like, its skin is too thick on the outside. I have to go inside.
Yeah. Scanlan did that on a Vox Machina
yes, he
episode.
went inside the dragon. Yeah, sure did. Yeah. That was a mistake. That did not work out well.
Yeah, but this is Stephen King right out of his warped mind.
The mouth opening, man. It's the mouth opening that gets me. I pulled this one from the 2023 version of TOB1. It's on page 285. But if you look at the older Tome of Beasts, the description on that one, I almost liked a little better because it talked about the mouth opening unnaturally. Like I almost, like I said, like a snake unhinging its jaw, but quicker and just in this strange way. I just picture this opening up too big for its own body and just engulfing a person, and it just that's creepy stuff. Good grim horror type stuff.
I really loved how you went into the false heart and left a little mystery too for the players to solve. You know, what is the false heart? It sounds more like a piece of jewelry.
I love it. I think it's a cool one. Definitely something that may have to happen in my game at some point. I hope my players aren't listening, but you know, hey.
I always threaten creatures, you know, they just never know when they're going to come up. So,
exactly. Well, what about you, man? What do you got for us today?
Well, I too was inspired by one of our past episodes, you know, particularly the one of Jotunheim. So let me set it up for you. As you traverse the frozen landscape, the air grows colder and more still. An overwhelming silence swallows the distant howl of the wind. You reach a massive, ice-carved hall embedded in the side of a glacier. The entrance, framed by enormous pillars of frost, is guarded by ancient runes glowing faintly with a blue light. Stepping inside, you are met with a colossal figure seated on a throne of ice and stone. The Jotun Giant towering over you with a presence that commands both awe and fear. He gazes down with eyes that seem to hold the wisdom of eons.
Who dares enter the hall of the Jotun?
His voice booming, echoing through the cavernous space. The very air vibrates with each syllable, and you feel the weight of his gaze upon you. The air vibrates with each syllable, and you feel the weight of his gaze upon you, as if he's measuring your worth. With a roar that shakes the sky, the Jotun Giant advances, each step causing the earth to quake. The temperature drops sharply, and you can see your breath as you prepare to face this colossal adversary. Despite his immense size and formidable power emanating from him, his eyes have a glint of curiosity. You sense that this chance meeting could lead to an opportunity for dialogue, but you must choose your words carefully, for the Jotun are not known for their patience with intruders. But if you choose the fight, the battle ahead will test your strength, courage, and wit against one of the most formidable foes you've ever encountered. What do you do? So yeah, I give the players an option: fight or negotiate. And then there's always flee. Like we said in the past episode in Jotunheim, the Jotun Giants are the OGs of the giants. They are colossal beings, often depicted as the ancient foes of the gods. And they have a rich and fascinating mythology that we're going to explore. The earth shudders with every footfall of these massive giants. Standing tall enough to look a titan in the eye and strong enough to wrestle a dragon, Jotun Giants are the undisputed lords of giantkind. Their enormous halls are typically carved into mountains and glaciers, which are scattered throughout the northern lands. And as the immortal enemies of the northern gods, the Jotun plot and scheme to regain their former status as the lords of creation. These giants are not just brute force and size. They possess ancient secrets and snippets of arcane lore that date back to the times before history as we know it. The most powerful among them straddle the line between mortal and demigod, making them formidable foes and intriguing figures in mythology. Now, to understand the Jotun better, let's take a look at their stat block, which gives us insight into their capabilities and strength. Now, the Jotun are classified as gargantuan giants with a chaotic neutral alignment. They have a natural armor class of 20, a staggering 370 average hit point that tops out at 560 HP, and a speed of 60 feet. Their physical prowess is unmatched, with a strength score of 30, constitution of 26, and impressive mental faculties, including an intelligence of 18 and a wisdom of 20. Their saving throws are also formidable. The constitution is at plus 15. Their wisdom modifier is plus 12. Their charisma modifier is plus 9. They're skilled in arcana, history, nature, showcasing their deep knowledge of ancient and mystical lore. They even possess stealth capabilities, though one might wonder how such a massive being manages to sneak around. So in terms of their resistance, the Jotun are immune to cold and to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage from non-magical attacks. They have dark vision up to 120 feet, which means they can see in total darkness, and their passive perception is 15, so not much is going to get past them. Communicating with them might be easier than you think, as they speak both common and giant. But their abilities go beyond physical and the sensory. The Jotun are endowed with a range of extraordinary traits. So they got Demigod's Vitality, which their ability scores and hit points cannot be reduced except by a wish spell, making them nearly invincible. They wield icy weapons. Their attacks are magical, that add an extra 68 cold damage to their attacks. They have magic resistance. That's essentially advantage on saving throws against spells and magical effects. Another feature, material bound. They are immune to spells or effects that would force them to leave the material plane unless they wish to leave, though they have disadvantage on saving throws against effects that would return them to the material plane from another existence. And this one's the feature. Too big to notice. So while motionless in natural terrain, they have advantage on stealth checks. Now in combat, the Jotun are a force to be reckoned with. They can use their frightful presence to instill fear in their enemies, make 3 attacks with their great club, or hurl massive rocks with deadly precision. Their attacks are devastating, dealing significant bludgeoning and cold damage. One of their most fearsome abilities is their icy sweep. With a massive swing of their ice-coated great club, they can damage all creatures within 20 feet, potentially knocking them prone and pushing them back. This attack recharges on a roll of 5 or 6 on a d6, which adds a layer of unpredictability to their combat prowess. They also possess spellcasting capabilities. They cast powerful spells such as Earthquake, Bestow Curse, Gust of Wind, Divination, and if you thought you could simply throw a rock at them, think again. Their rock-catching ability allows them to catch and nullify incoming projectiles with ease. So what do we learn from this? Well, the Jotun Giants are not just towering behemoths with brute strength. They are intelligent, magical, and strategically gifted beings who pose a challenge even to the mightiest of heroes. Their lore is rich with tales of ancient battles, arcane secrets, and a relentless desire to reclaim their status as lords of creation. Playing a Jotun Giant against the PCs involves leveraging its immense physical strength, magical abilities, and strategic intelligence. So here's a guide on how you might approach this in both combat and social encounters. So let's start with combat. Initial presence and intimidation. So you can begin the counter with the Jotun Giant using its frightful presence to immediately test the resolve of the PCs. This sets the tone for battle and can weaken the party immediately, something I love doing. Describe the earth-shaking steps and the cold aura surrounding the giant to emphasize its size and power. Utilize the terrain in combat. Make use of their environment. If the encounter is in a mountainous or icy setting, the Jotun might trigger avalanches or use the terrain to its advantage. The Jotun can take advantage of high ground, narrow passes, and natural obstacles to control the flow of the battle. So in the area of attack patterns, the Jotun should use its multi-attack ability to deliver powerful strikes with its great club or by hurling massive rocks. Alternate between melee and ranged attacks to keep the PCs on their toes and prevent them from easily closing in or retreating. When surrounded by multiple PCs, which typically happens in combat encounters I run, you can use the icy sweep attack to maximize damage and control the battlefield by knocking opponents prone. Now, with its magical abilities, you can integrate its spellcasting into the fight. Start off with Earthquake to disrupt the party's formation, bestow Curse to weaken key players, and Gust of Wind to scatter foes. Speak with Animals can be used creatively to call upon local wildlife for assistance or information, say a winter wolf. Now, they have great defensive tactics, as I mentioned earlier. The Jotun should use its magical resistance to its advantage, aiming to shrug off spells and magical effects that the PCs might use to control or harm it. So if large rocks or other projectiles are used against it, use their rock-catching reaction to avoid damage and maintain its intimidating presence. Now, the last part of the fight is their material-bound ability. Make sure you don't forget about this thing, because I've had characters that I use Banish all the time. And I did this in a prior encounter fighting against a giant. And I was able to banish him. They don't roll very well. So use this trait to resist any attempts to banish or teleport your Jotun Giant. Highlight its connection to the material plane, emphasizing that it is deeply rooted in the physical world. So in a social encounter, this is where you can really have fun with this character. You can start off with the Jotun Giant establishing their dominance and curiosity. And I sort of alluded that in the description at the top of my creature showcase. So when the PCs enter the Jotun's domain, describe the giant's towering form and the almost palpable aura of cold and power. The Jotun should initially address the PCs with an air of superiority, testing their intentions and resolve with probing questions or challenges. And that's something that, if you wish to use this, that's something that you should write out in advance. Now, don't stop there. Engage in dialogue. The Jotun is not just a brute. It has intelligence and knowledge of ancient lore. And you can use this to create dialogue that reveals bits of history, personal motivations, or potential quests. Again, you don't have to fight all the time. So if your PCs approach respectively and cunningly, the Jotun might be willing to share information, grant a boon, or enter into a temporary alliance. As part of your social encounter, you can throw in some challenges and tests. Propose riddles, physical challenges, or magical tests to evaluate the worthiness of the PC. These can be used to stall for time, test the skills of the PC, or simply just they do it for their own amusement. The giant enjoys contests that might offer rewards for winning, such as a powerful artifact, valuable information, or safe passage through its territory. And this is a trope that's been used in fantasy fiction for forever. The last bit of a social encounter could be in the area of deception and insight. Since the Jotun is not easily fooled, a clever PC may attempt to deceive or trick it. They can use its high wisdom and insight to catch on quickly. So you can allow your Jotun Giant to set traps within the conversation, leading the PCs to reveal more than they intended. So I'll wrap this up by saying, maintain a proper balance between action and dialogue with this creature. This is on the level of an adult or ancient dragon. And the Jotun should never appear as a static obstacle. It is active and it's a dynamic part of the world. So emphasize their personality traits. They should come across as ancient, powerful, and somewhat alien in its perspective. And be prepared to adapt to the PC strategies. If they come up with clever solutions or role-playing angles, reward their creativity with unique interactions and advantages in combat. So combining the Jotun's physical prowess, magical abilities, and strategic intelligence, you can really create a memorable and challenging encounter that showcases the Jotun Giant as a formidable and multi-dimensional force. And most importantly, it's not just a stat block. There's a lot to it if you spend a little time with your creature.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm listening to all this and I'm thinking, like, I keep going back to the beginning to where you said, what do you do? And now I'm like, run. I just run. I keep picturing like just this being of godlike power. Just what do you even do with this? I almost put him above an ancient dragon. Like, and I feel like a dragon I know how to handle, but this, they're strong, they're fast, they're powerful.
Smart.
Yeah, smart. They're resistant to like everything. And they'll just mess with you. I mean, plus they're just in it for a good time. They're so overly confident in their ability that they don't even consider the party a threat. So yeah, like you're talking about, like especially when you talk about the social aspect, that's what I really liked. Combat, I think most people can wrap their head around, but the social aspect of it, like challenging them, them wanting to challenge the PCs to a contest of strength, if for no other reason than their own amusement. I mean, that's messed up, man.
Unless your party is suicidal, they're not going to win in combat.
No.
Against this creature.
I mean, maybe if they're end game level 20, but
this is a NPC you throw in to provide information or to acquire or borrow a magical item that'll help them accomplish their quest.
Yeah, that's what I see this as. Is more of an NPC that's there to obstruct or aid, but not to fight necessarily. I mean, it'd be cool to see. It would definitely be cool to fight. Maybe we can convince this guy to go fight that red dragon in Stannisgard or something like that.
Yeah. And that's the very reason I threw in a lot of information that you can use to turn this into a social encounter.
Yeah, that was a good call.
Just simply not going to win in combat with this creature.
Nope. They're cool though, man. Like I could see them as like a guardian to something, maybe like a guardian to some ancient power. Maybe that you have to pass a trial that they put before you, and then they'll give you some weapon or some power. I know we talked about the Cult of Ragnarok needing certain materials. Maybe this guy's guarding one of those materials, and you have to get it before the cult can. One thing I thought of though was if you ever played the World of Warcraft and there was like Ultimate and some of those instances with like the Titans and the Ancients and stuff like that, like I always get that kind of all powerful being vibes from these guys. Like they're one step below godhood, and I think it also showcases how much above a standard giant is, because when we talked about Jotunheim, we talked about how there's frost giants and fire giants and hill giants and other giants there, but how these guys look down on all those. And this is why, like showcasing what these guys look like explains a lot about that region and that society, and why the other giants are nothing compared to these guys.
Absolutely right, Joe. I highly recommend that you try to work this creature into an encounter in your adventures. Well, that's it for our creature showcase for this episode.
Yep. And, guys, we do love hearing from our listeners. We value your feedback and your comments on the content we discussed. So you can always reach us in several ways. Obviously, you can comment on today's episode on our YouTube channel, and we always read and respond to every comment. So don't hesitate to share your thoughts with us and our fellow listeners. And you can reach us in several ways. Don't forget to comment on today's episode on our YouTube channel. We always read and respond to every comment, so don't hesitate to share your thoughts with us and our fellow listeners. You can also get us on social media, the best place being the koboldpress official Discord server. There you can send us a direct message or tag us in your post, and we'll join in the conversation. Also, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us to grow and reach a bigger audience. We're also on different podcast platforms, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Stitcher. So if you're on those, please leave us a review or a rating. It will definitely help us out to reach more listeners who also share a love of the Midgard setting. Thank you for tuning in to today's That Midgard Show episode. And remember, as Wolfgang Barr says,
strip it for parts and make it your own. Thank you so much for being part of our community. Take care, everyone.
Bye, everybody.